Okay, December was not as bookish as I had expected due to how slowly I process science, narrative, nonfiction that is going through the history of all life on Earth. I'm Quinn Moone, I write queer fairy tales and I overestimated myself for the month of December. So let's talk about what happened, why it happened, and what I actually got done. First, let's start with what we did finish. And by we, I mean me. I finished Amusing Ourselves to the End for my book club that met in the month of December. It's a little over my head. I listened to the discussion. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I went and I was able to follow along. I don't really read books that are about like social commentary or social criticism. So I really was just an audience member listening to everybody discuss. I also finished Slewfoot by Brom. This was a really fun witchy book. I didn't think I would dislike it. I didn't think I would like it as much as I did. We follow Abatha as she is put through the ringer in this little Puritan village. She becomes a widow very early on in the book. All she's trying to do is, keep her head above water, and the villagers are just not having an independent woman. We get backed into a corner, and when you back someone into a corner, witchiness happens. And thankfully everybody gets their comeuppance. There are a couple of tragic characters that is a bummer. Those superstitions will be the end of all of us, right? So I really enjoyed it. The story was very fun. Was it the most exceptionally well-written book in the world? No. Was it a really fun story? Yes, and the audiobook was fantastic. I also finished They Hate Each Other by Amanda Woody. This was my queer rom-com book of the month. I try to read a queer rom-com every single month, and this just hit the nail on the head. It is everything I wanted, everything I didn't know I wanted. We follow Jonah and Dylan as they're both just trying to keep their head above water, trying to survive high school and their broken homes. Due to the fact that their two best friends are dating, they're constantly being teased about how they are a match made in heaven if only they could get over the fact that they hate each other. So, as any teenager would do, they think fake dating is the answer. As we go, we uncover the true issues that these two kids are dealing with. They grow together, they have their arguments and their fights. It's not heavy on like romance and spice or anything like that. It is much more about the mutual healing taking place between these two kids. I loved it. I cried, I laughed, I cried some more. It was an unexpectedly fun, real book, and I didn't mind the trauma dumping. I preferred to know that both of these kids had similar things at stake. Otherwise, one of the issues would have been trivialized. So this was super fun, definite win. I got it on audiobook and I ended up having to go buy it, which I'm realizing is kind of a treacherous pattern, but this was super fun, really good. Love this book. Those are the books we did finish. On to the books we started but did not finish. Endurance. This is still happening. I started this book before my break where my attention span was just shot. So not a whole lot of progress was made, not because it's heavy, but just because I was so fried. I was burnt out. I burn out twice a year. December hits hard. So I started this book and I'm like, this might fall off the rails. It did. Totally okay. I will absolutely get to it. So I'm picking this up in the month of January just because it's not heavy. It's fun. I have so many questions just because I've been reading about polar exploration for so long. I recognize names, so I start like geeking out about it on my own. This is definitely happening in the month of January. I'm really excited. I started this in December, so this is a carryover. I started Studio Ghibli, the in-depth analysis of the films and careers of Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki. Beautiful book. I love seeing their career progression. I love seeing their styles develop. I love that with every film that they complete, we see a little bit more of their growth, a little bit more of their style, their voice, what makes their movies theirs. This is also prompting a whole lot of self-reflection on my part, making me ask myself, what makes my book a Quinn Moone book? What is my brand? What are the pillars and themes and motifs that I want to communicate in my stories? So this is a fun, inspiring journey. I love seeing that we get this artistic success. Unfortunately, it was not a financial success and we need more funding and just the logistics rearing their ugly heads, but we didn't compromise on the artistry. And I love that and I respect that. So this is super fun. I will definitely be getting through this. I read about a new film every day. They're short little excerpts and very fun. If you're a fan of Studio Ghibli, if you're a fan of the artistry and want to know how Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli came to be who they are, this is an invaluable story. Now let's talk about where it all went wrong. A Very Short History of Life on Earth by Henry Gee. Not the book that I should have paired for a quick read because it was thin, very misleading. This book is taking me 2 hours per chapter to be able to process everything that has happened, everything that has evolved in a matter of about 15 to 20 pages, follow the evolutionary cycle, keep track of kind of where we are in the timeline, what came before, what's coming after. By the way, plants are no-go again. Carbon dioxide levels are fluctuating and totally throwing everything out of whack. All of that is stuff that you could enjoy the ride, but I want to understand it. I want to remember everything I read, which is unreasonable. This is a very fun read, but this book saw that I had 15 books on the docket, and it's like, not on my watch. This is going to be a carryover into January. I know how to pace myself now, so I'm dedicating 2 hours of study time to get through this. So fun. So dense. I'm loving it. It's just a bit of a tedious journey. I will be here for the entire tedious journey and enjoy every slow minute of it. But it is not the book to read with haste. Not as treacherous as the last one, but also up there with slower pacing. The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs by Steve Brissot. The only reason this one is a bit of a slower pace is because I want to stop and ask questions. I want to stop and make connections with this book. I want to imagine the dinosaurs in their tropical environments, in their deserts, in their rivers or whatnot. This is your buddy telling you about all of these fossil adventures that they went on, and you're like, oh my god, slow down, I'm trying to keep track of all of these dinosaurs that you found. That's why I'm reading this slowly. I am engaging with the text. If I think something's funny, I comment on why I think it's funny. If I have a question, I'm like, is this gonna get answered? Probably. Or I could just Google it, but that would break the trance and the experience. So I write it down, I wait, I laugh, I gasp, because sometimes I'm just kind of like, oh no, that's like icky. We should not have done that. So I'm really enjoying this book. Also going to be carryover into January. And I just have to dedicate an hour per chapter. So these 2 books alone, that's 3 hours of reading minimum per day that I picked these up, which is fine. Just was not expecting this when I'm just like, I totally got 15 books I'm going to get through. Under normal circumstances, that would have been fine. These books were like, no, you don't. Wow. Those are the only books that I started. Well, that's it for the month of December. I got a lot of writing done. So the reason that December was lower on the reading was also because not only were the books heavier and denser than I had anticipated, I established a lot of scalable processes and routines that I can take with me into 2025 to ensure that my documentation process, that my scheduling and my coordination to ensure that all of my stuff is kind of in alignment is there and is something that I can maintain. Because everything's usually hunky-dory at the very beginning, and then life just gets a little reckless, and all of a sudden I'm a month behind of recording. I haven't picked up the camera, and it's just not consistent. I also refined my personal writing process. I have a process for outlining that I'm really enjoying. I have like the process to transfer that to one thing, and then transfer that thing to the other thing, and then put that box in another box. But it makes sense to my very structured brain. If anybody asks me what does my brain look like, it's a giant spreadsheet. And it is the unsexiest, boring old man thing in the world, but that's how I process things. So that's why everything is very rigid, structured. Everything is a table in my mind. So I've established that for my writing process, and that is extremely important, as well as my note taking. Because I do such extensive amount of research for all of my writing, I needed to ensure that the note taking process made sense. So I have a note taking process now. I have a writing software down that had a learning curve. I finally had time to trial and error that. I had time to trial and error certain recordings, and I figured out how I like my recordings. So it was 2 weeks of heavy admin, along with heavy reading, trying to world build, trying to define a magic system. So all of the logistics is what took up my 2 weeks, and I cannot be happier with the progress that I've made. That just meant that I did not have time to sit for 6 hours and read about the history of life on Earth. So is what it is. I'm happy that I still didn't waste those 2 weeks, and that December in my mind was still very productive. And I feel set up for success for the month of January and beyond. That was a lot of non-bookish content. What did you read for the month of December? If you have any queer holiday recommendations, I'm totally up for them. Please let me know. If you've read any of the books that I've read, I would love to talk about it. If you've been wanting to read any of the books, let me know. I am going to be doing kind of like book talk videos of all of them because I love talking about books. That's it for this video. I'll catch you next time. Bye.